welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. I hope that you're doing well and are enjoying the podcast and the topics we've covered so far. These podcasts are released every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to be kept up to date. So today we will be discussing 10 ways to effectively make healthier lifestyle choices. And in a roundabout way, this is probably one of the biggest questions that I get asked daily by clients and patients is simple ways to make getting healthier, which is really difficult, and I understand and I can completely empathize with that. How to make it as easy as possible, but also make those changes stick. So I've put down a few notes here that we're going to whiz through, and ideally, if you can implement quite a few of them, but if not, maybe one or two could really make the difference, the change that you're making, and hopefully making them effective, but also lasting to make sure that we want to get those healthy lifestyle changes that we're looking for. So first of all is one that I've done previous episodes on, and it's around setting smart and grow goals. Having a clearly defined goal allows you to act in a way that aligns with the outcomes that you want. So ensuring that you've not only got an outcome goal that you want, so for example, if you want to run a race, if you want to reach a certain goal weight, but also having process goals in place that are going to allow you to achieve that. So if you want to lose weight, then how am I going to achieve that? So I might commit to per week going for a walk 3 times a week. I might increase my fruit and veg. I might monitor my calories if that's something you want to do. All these things, making sure they align with what we want to do. But whilst the SMART model is really good and it really helps you nail down what you want to achieve, the GROW model that we discussed in previous episodes is a really, really useful tool. I think it was episode 11 or around there, where we look at what you want to achieve, which is the G, the R, which is the reality, which I've got another episode coming up on soon around the importance of knowing your reality. The O is the obstacles or opportunities there. So what sort of things might we come up against in achieving our goals, but also what opportunities are there to potentially make sure that we're going to move forward with these actions. And then W is the workaround. So how we're going to work around those obstacles to ensure that we achieve the outcome that we want. Really, really useful tools in there. Definitely listen to episode 11 if you haven't, because that can really help you nail down what you want to achieve, but also how you're going to achieve it. Second of all is prioritize small and sustainable changes. Gradual changes, and I know it's unsexy, and a lot of stuff I talk about is really unsexy, but it's the stuff that works. We don't want you to overhaul your complete life routine. And again, one of the examples I always use is Veganuary. People have Christmas, they feel like they want to get healthier in the new year. They don't particularly have a great diversity in their diet, or they don't have a lot of fruits and veg in, and they go, you know what, I'm going to do Veganuary. And I'm sure it comes from a good place, but if you've not got skills or the tools available to you to make that big change lasting or easy, it's going to be really, really difficult. If you're going from 0 to 60, going from no fruits and veg and a more processed diet to completely whole diet where you've got little meat and you're having lots of fruits and vegetables in there. One, it might be a bit of a gear change for your digestive tract, but also your palate, also effort in there as well. These big changes, there's lots of things there that could go wrong, and that's why I always talk about sustainable changes. So yes, whilst I might sit down with someone and go, well, I want to improve their diet, and we look at it and we say, right, we could probably increase the amount of fruits and vegetables. And if somebody's not eating any, me going, right, we're going to hit 5 to 10 next week, probably isn't going to be very easy. It's going to feel quite uncomfortable. So instead, actually, it's probably more beneficial for me to go, right, maybe how are we going to find to get 1 per day in at the moment? What sort of fruit and veg do you like? How can we see them getting in there? Is there any obstacles that might stop you doing that? How can we make it easy and accessible? Adding more lube and reducing the friction, those sorts of things. So making small, sustainable changes and things that you can see yourself not just doing for the next 12 to 16 weeks, but the next 12 to 16 years. Trying to get that long-term mentality can have a big change on the ability to stick to these changes, but also the success of these changes as well. Number 3, and this might sound obvious, but find enjoyable activities. Often people, when they're thinking about making healthy changes, they automatically have these negative connotations where they feel like the diet's going to be miserable, going to be going to the gym, they're going to go running, and they don't enjoy either of those. And actually, we need to ensure that the process is enjoyable, because you're more likely to stick to it, you're more likely to do it more often, and it's going to feel less of a pain in the arse and hopefully remove those negative connotations. So one example I always use, I've got a patient who didn't like going for a walk, she didn't feel safe in a local area, and that was a big barrier. She wanted to lose weight, so we were looking at increasing her energy output, her activity levels. And she just said, well,
we sort of brainstormed some ideas, and we settled on, actually, she really enjoys putting the radio on, having a bit of a dance in the kitchen. And from my side, I was like, that's brilliant. Yes, it's not the thing that we sort of put in that box of, right, you've got to be active, you've got to go for these walks, you've got to get outside. Yes, these are all things important, but maybe we can find other ways around that. Maybe she enjoys gardening and that's her time in nature, but her physical activity could be at home in the kitchen while she's cooking, having the radio on, having a bit of a dance. And it's just finding ways around that, and she enjoyed that, so therefore she'd more likely to do it more often, and she's more likely to stick to it long term. So moving and thinking outside of that box and thinking of different ways to move our body that we enjoy, and it's going to, one, improve our energy output, also put us in a better headspace, and people who are in a better headspace tend to make better decisions in regards to their health and well-being. So again, just finding enjoyment in your activities, and it doesn't even have to be about energy expenditure. I've spoken to patients before, and we'd have one of our goals, whether it was weight loss or whatever, would be around finding something to do that you enjoy. What do you actually enjoy? And one patient, for example, enjoyed painting model planes, and we'd have a good 10-15 minute chat and making sure he's scheduling time for himself. Is that going to have a massive impact on his energy expenditure that day? Probably not, but it's a good mindful experience, something that he actually enjoys and looks forward to. Bit of me time. But then also it's improving his headspace to make better decisions around his food during the day. So having those little wins of simple things, and again, finding enjoyable activities, whether it's increasing your energy or not, is a really good way to go about it. Number 4 is seek support and accountability. So having gym buddies, having friends or a group that you're a part of can really help with feeling supported and motivated. We know that people are more likely to stick to their habits and behaviours if they feel part of a community where those habits and behaviours are normalised. So if you find a group where it's normal for you to eat more fruits and vegetables, it's normal for you to be more active at the weekend, it's normal for you to meet up once a week and have a chat whilst you're doing something. These are things that are really important. So find your vibe, find your tribe is a real good thing that I stand by. So being part of the community, as we're social animals, is a real big part of that. Number 5, and this is a bit of a tricky one, and it's reward yourself. And we want to reward ourselves that in a way that aligns with our goals and values. So if we're aiming to lose weight and we're lost a pound that week, potentially not having a big takeaway that night and having all the trimmings is the best way to go about it. But maybe having some form of takeaway or some form of really nice food that is more moderated in its calorie intake, that's probably a bit less processed, could be a best way to go about it. But there's lots of other options away from food that we could reward ourselves with. So we could take ourselves out for a nice spa treatment, we could buy ourselves some new clothes, we could buy us that kitchen thing that's going to, that bit of cooking equipment that we've been looking at for a while, that smoothie maker, for example, that actually is going to help us kick on with our goals. So there's lots of different things, and potentially having a list of things that could be nice rewards and having milestones involved with that. So when I've hit £2 off, £5 off, when I've gone for my 2 runs this week, 3 runs a week, or I've hit all my runs this week, or I've been to that class 2 or 3 times, then I can reward myself with this. So there's lots of different things that can be beneficial, and you know you best, but focusing on what you feel is valuable and habits and behaviours and making sure the reward aligned with that is a really useful way to go about it. Number 6 is make healthy habits easy to access. So we talk about healthy habits and those sort of things about being more active, obviously having a more nutritious diet, managing our sleep, our stress, having social connection each day. All these things are really important, but we need to make them as easy as possible, as making healthy changes is quite difficult, as we probably all know. So making sure that we've got things that are out in the open that we want to do. So for example, if we're trying to eat less crisps and eat more fruit, then potentially having the fruit out on the worktop and having the crisps tucked away at the back of the cupboard makes it a bit easier to make better decisions. We're not saying that we should never have crisps and we should always have fruit. There might be a time where actually the crisps might be a better option, but that allows us to make the more difficult decision of having something that's probably not as nice, as we'd all probably agree with the fruit, actually easier to do. And again, adding friction, so adding lube and friction is something I discuss quite a lot, but adding lube to the things that we want to do, so making them a bit easier, and adding friction, again, the things that we want to stop doing, so the crisps is a good example. Same thing with like being more active, laying your kit out the night before, putting your shoes at the front door. Those sort of things are just little things, little barriers that can get in the way. And if we try and find ways around them, or try and find ways to reduce the unwanted behaviours that we want to do, again, it just makes it more likely to stick long term. Number 7, and this is a big one that I often work on with patients, clients, is managing your stress effectively. So recognize situations or activities that trigger stress. And often when people are sent to me by the doctor, I'll sit down with them and they'll be sent because their BMI is too high, they've got a health condition they're not looking after, or they feel they could get support from the health and wellbeing coach. Brilliant. And I sit down with them going, right, I've read through your notes, but I probably won't discuss that initially. I'll just go, what brings you here? And often they'll talk about the problem, and then we might discuss their lifestyle a little bit more. And often stress plays a big part in it and their ways of coping and managing with stress. For example, some patients, they're looking after ill relatives, they might have children, they might be a single parent household, then partner might be unemployed or unwell, these sorts of things. And these are big stresses. So actually they're putting themselves at the bottom of the list, but also they're probably not managing that stress very well. And we have to find ways of not actually talk about, calorie deficits and going out for that walk or trying to get your 150 minutes of activity in a week, because that's not stuff that's not helpful. They probably already know that. They feel guilty because they're not doing that. And actually, me sitting there and going, right, actually the main thing we've got to monitor here is your stress levels, because when you're less stressed, you'll probably make better decisions, stuff that you know that you want to do or probably should be doing. So sitting down, having ways to relax. So things like having a stretch, yoga, maybe having a mini spa treatment at home, some deep breathing, working on sort of box breathing techniques. There's lots of different ways we can do that. And I've mentioned my previous client around painting his model planes. That could be a stress reducing activity. So making sure we're scheduling that in a couple of times a week could be really useful. So again, having different ways to manage your stress, because often the only way that people manage any sort of emotion or stress is leaning into food. If they feel anxious, they eat. If they feel worried, they'll eat. If they're upset, they'll eat. If they're happy, they'll eat. And I'm not saying that comfort eating is a bad thing, but it's probably not going to solve all of our problems, and it needs to be narrowed down and actually branched out into other ways to manage and cope with that stress a bit better. So, number 8 on the list, prioritize sleep. I've done a couple of episodes on sleep. It is so important. As I've just traveled back from the Philippines earlier this week, had a really, really rough journey, didn't get any sleep, and I've not felt right for the last couple of days. My appetite's been all over the place, my sleep's been terrible. Drive to move isn't there, and I found it really difficult. And actually, I'm somebody who knows about this, who talks a bit about this and works with people on improving these areas. And so I should be, quote unquote, I should know better. But if sleep's not in a good place, everything becomes so much harder. And actually, it's like pushing water uphill. So prioritizing getting restful sleep where you can. Have a look at barriers of things that are probably not helping, why being on screens too late, having caffeine too late in the afternoon, eating too late, not having a wind down before bed, making sure the room's nice and cool and dark. And as I said, there's a whole episode or 2 episodes on what's correlated with sleep, and there's lots of poor health outcomes associated with poor sleep. Also, different ways to improve your sleep. And we're not aiming for perfection. And actually, one of the clients I worked with recently, it became a bit of a trigger tracking sleep, that she found that she was trying to perfect her sleep, and actually removed that away and just looked at, right, let's mark our sleep out of 10 each night. And if on average it's getting better, then we know we're doing the right things. But ensuring that we've got a consistent sleep-wake cycle if we can. I know it's difficult if you work shifts and things like that, which potentially I should do another whole episode on, even at weekends. But having a bit of a wind down and also trying to keep consistent with your sleep-wake cycle as well. Number 9 is seek professional guidance. Again, consult a healthcare practitioner if you're worried about anything in regards to your health. Potentially get a referral into someone like me as a health coach if you're looking outside of the healthcare system, potentially looking for a nutritionist or a dietitian if you can. And reach out to me if you're not too sure. I can help you myself, or I can refer you on, recommend someone. I don't know, lots of people in this area, and it's just really useful getting that professional guidance and helping with that accountability as well. A lot of the patients who get best results from me that I work with will probably catch up every 1 or 2 weeks, and it's just mainly me checking in, going, those things that we discussed last session, those are the sort of goals that we worked on, these are the things that we committed to, how are you getting on with those? It's not me beating them with a stick, it's me sitting down with them going, right, we said that we were probably going to try and get out for a walk for 10 minutes most days if we can. How have we gotten with that? They might have nailed it, they might have done more, they might have done less. We'll discuss potentially, right, what went to plan, what didn't, how can we make sure that it goes more to plan next time, and then set some goals moving forward and arrange a catch-up. So setting that accountability, so we'll catch up at 8 a.m. in 2 weeks' time, keep consistent. I might send them some resources, but again, it's all about having someone who is outside of your situation. And even coaches like myself need coaches. You might think, well, I must write my own nutrition plan, I might write my own gym workout, I might write my own running plans, and I can do that, but actually it's much better for me to get an external opinion and just trust them, someone that I work with, and go, right, I trust them, their expertise, their knowledge and experience, and also they'll be able to see things that I don't, and they'll be able to pick apart and potentially have a look at times when I'm not being quite as honest with myself as I should be. Things like that can be really helpful, and doing it in a way that I know that's going to support me moving forward. So that's number 9. Number 10, and this is probably the biggest tool in anyone's arsenal if they're trying to make healthy, sustainable changes to their lifestyle, and it is the biggest strength if you can develop it, and that's being patient and consistent. Understanding that this process is gradual, it won't happen overnight. You might have 2 or 3 stone to lose, but that's not going to happen by the end of this week, and being understanding and accepting of that. But if you're consistent with your habits and behaviours, we could be there in 3-6 months' time. That's the reality of it all. And understanding that I'm going to commit to daily habits and processes that I've agreed to, that I know work with my values and goals, and I'm going to try and be as consistent as I can. I'm not going to be perfectionist about it. I'm just going to do as best as I can each day sometimes, and sometimes things happen, but embracing that it probably won't go to plan. I need to have some flexibility in there. So for example, if I say I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week, actually me aiming to go 3 to 5 times a week might be better. There's lots of things I've discussed in previous episodes, but I think it's really important to repeat myself, because often it's just about hearing it again to make it stick. And having that flexibility stops with that all or nothing mindset. So for example, if you say you're going to go to the gym 5 times a week, and Monday you've had to work late at work, Tuesday you've had a rough night's sleep so you didn't get there in the morning, Wednesday you've got a commitment in that evening, that you're already there, and you're 3 days down, you've got 5 gym sessions to catch up on. You might think by Thursday, go, what's the point? Can't be bothered, I've got 4 days to fit 5 gym sessions in. When if we go with 3 to 5 or 2 to 5, then your mindset might change. Go, well, you know what? I've got an upper body and a lower body session that I can do on a Thursday and Saturday, and that's still going to be enough. I know that that's going to be enough stimulus to me, that I'm probably not going to be making huge gains with 2 times a week, but you know what? I can make decent progress, and actually 2 sessions per week is better than no sessions per week. So committing to that flexibility, being flexible with your approach but persistent with your goals, is really, really important in that.
So there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier, happier, and more balanced life in the process, click the link below and inquire about working with me. Remember to subscribe to the Balanced Approach podcast wherever you're listening for more insightful episodes, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.